Hello and good afternoon to everyone joining us on this, well, at least here in Southeast London, a glorious sunny afternoon. It's not 5 o'clock, it's 4 o'clock. Rich had things to do, so we shifted the whole webinar over just so, I don't know, he could, clean his toes or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. We've already got a nice hello from people joining us. Hello, good to see you too. Thank you for joining us today. So yeah, before we start, let's have a quick round. We've got 4 out of 5 here today. We don't know, Kat might join us later. We shall wait and see. But let's get started and do the rounds and have a quick introduction from everyone. And I'm going to pick on Rich again to introduce yourself first. Hello, Rich.
Hello, David. Thank you. And thank you for moving it to 4 o'clock, everybody. I do appreciate it. So my name's Rich.
Your groupies complain otherwise. So.
Yeah, all 3 of them. But that's including my mum as well. So my name's Rich Dibins, creator of Staxton Digital, been digital marketing within the legal sector for the last 10 years. Core strength around social media and LinkedIn coaching for law firms. So helping you navigate the minefield that is social media and LinkedIn.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rich. And let's go to Simon. Simon, your unicorn is hidden today. Your unicorn is in the dark. Oh dear.
There you go. Oh, or is it? Hi, I'm Simon Marshall. I'm the founder of TBD Marketing. We work exclusively in the legal sector on all manner of kind of content marketing, digital marketing, things like that. You can check us out on LinkedIn and maybe have a look at the hashtag Digital100. We like giving people a bit of an industry context as to what they're doing, so they're not just staggering around in the dark with their own statistics, wondering if it means anything. So if you ever want to know how you're performing, I'm going to show someone today how their average site scores had performed against the industry over a 2-year period. That makes people happy, that kind of graph. So yeah, there we go.
That sounds fabulous. I'm already looking forward to that. Thank you. Sorry, I've pressed the wrong button there. Hello again.
We've said it later, don't you?
And last but by no means least, there's Charlotte. Hello, Charlotte. How are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm wonderful today, thank you. My name is Charlotte Takács, and I am the Cmo of Novum Learning, which is a professional micro-learning platform. We very heavily work with the legal sector, and we bring together all sorts of experts around the legal industry to provide education to law firms and in-house legal teams that ranging from marketing to operations, technology, all to one goal, which is to make you very successful at what you do.
That sounds fabulous. Thank you very much. And as usual, we have at least a loose topic for the day, which
before we move on to that, you might want to introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
The humble host.
Yes, David.
I do keep forgetting. I'm David Sayce, digital marketing consultant. I work with law firms, professional services, a lot of B2B industries. I help again with a lot of the digital marketing, but especially I have the joys of diving into things like audits and one of my favorites, although probably not as I'm doing them, the lovely migration of websites. Nothing to make you a little bit stressed out than a good enterprise level migration. But anyway, that's
great into migrate.
You
put the great into migrate.
Yes,
I do. With that on, you've got to get
that. Hold on. I need to update my website as we speak. Thank you for that. I like to think so. Anyway, yes. Anyway, that completely threw me. So yes, today we're going to be talking about the content side of marketing, how content, how it works with firms, where we've seen perhaps good content working well, and how you can improve your content and why it's important. I think that's, especially I know from from the side of digital, I think content has had such a big push in recent years. We know search engines, for one, are getting a lot smarter when it comes to content. And so it's a lot of changes in that side. And speaking of which, just as a quick FYI for everyone, we've got 2 great big Google updates happening. We've got one happening today and one happening in July, which will probably impact if you haven't got great content. So there's a little extra information to bear in mind with your website. So who'd like to get the ball rolling on the content side?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Recently, I'd probably say in the last couple of weeks, I've been approached by it's 3 law firms and 1 legal provider asking, how do they know what is the best content? What is the best content to put out there, and how many words? Most people, the golden rule was always 500 words, then it went to 750, and then it could be 1,200 words. But I think also when it comes to content, people are misunderstanding. Content is not just word-based, it's video as well. It could be a podcast. Content covers so many areas. So yeah, when it comes to what type of content should I be putting out there as well, it's understanding what your audience wants. It's not what you think they want. So ask your clients, what do they find useful? So that's one of the big things that I've been asked a lot over the last handful of weeks, because as you mentioned, David, with the Google update, a lot of people are kind of pressing the panic button and suddenly steamrolling content onto their website, which I don't recommend they do. But yeah, what type of content should we be putting out there?
I think that's fascinating. And I think one of the things you mentioned there about the length of content, word count, is something that comes up time and time again. And I think this is actually one of the issues. And I've seen this when working with a number of law firms in particular. A few years back, there was a report saying how having video on the front page, homepage of your website would help boost rankings. And then, as you say, I think it initially started as you should have a minimum of 300 words on a page, then 700. Some reports now are saying 1,500. And it's interesting because, it's correlation and causation from a lot of these reports, understanding what it's actually saying. And I think, from my side, as you say, it's giving the audience what they want. You don't need to write 3,000 words on how to boil an egg. You can probably do that in a handful of words and still get a #1 position.
I think that is the biggest issue, is what they're concentrating. Somebody says you need to write an article, it's 1,500 words. That's all they hear is the 1,500 words. They don't actually hear what does those 1,500 words actually mean. So yeah, it's that audience understanding what it is, not so much on the length of it. Because you could write 1,500 words of crap and go, well, I've done the 1,500 words, that's a tick in the box, but it will still mean absolutely nothing. Sorry, Charlotte.
Well, I was just going to say, someone else might be a better expert at this than I am, but it's not just what the content actually says and how enjoyable it might be, but also the keyword density. And maybe, David, you can expand on that because you're the expert in SEO. But I think what I found in my personal experience is, yes, indeed, it doesn't have to be that lengthy, but it has to be lengthy enough so you can put in enough keywords so it doesn't feel like you're just cramming the page with keywords to rank. So it makes sense, but it still has enough to rank you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Keyword density. It's probably not a term that I use these days. It was something that we looked at, but I think Google's moved on, and this is the thing. Google is so much smarter now. It doesn't need to have the reassurance down the page of having the exact words being mentioned, but it's very true. You want the right words in there. You want everything that pulls together. I mean, I've always found, especially with written content on a page, when putting stuff together, have a look at those, the PAA, the people always ask in Google results. So one of my tips has always been, Google the key phrase, keyword that you're looking at. see what starts to appear in that auto suggest at the top of Google. That starts giving you ideas. Check out the front page there. There's often, people always ask, those questions are so incredibly powerful. And it's about making sure, actually, one of the biggest points with law firms is using the right terminology, not the internal words, but the words of the person who's actually going to be doing the searching, because that's probably been one of the biggest issues I've seen with professional services, the internal lingo taking over.
Fee earner. I can't stand it when people use fee earner in their content. Nobody outside the legal industry knows what that means.
Yeah.
And if anything, fee earner actually sounds quite bad. Oh, you're fee earning. But, you know, that's one of the ones that I've always, bugbear for me was that.
Yeah. But it's about making sure that there's the right variation. So it's not quite keyword density now, but it's along those sort of lines.
I think it's a lot of related concepts as well, isn't it, David? So if you're writing about divorce and you don't mention financial settlement, and Google knows that those two phrases should be near each other, then that's what you need to be doing. And I think I'm going to take us a step back on the content side of things, and it helps with Rich's point around, like, is it video, is it written, is it audio, you know, is it on social, what is it as well? And it answers some of Charlotte's questions. We've got to start out with intent, like not our intent, but the intent of the person who's reading it. And if we can start with intent, Charlotte can speak more to this than me. Obviously, I can show you the data afterwards. I think it's a really good starting point for how we go about crafting content, what kind of stuff we're going to include in our content, the timeliness with which we record it, the depth with which we go to it as well. So if you've got something that's happened that you need to tell your clients about urgently, there's nothing wrong with doing a 50-word blog post or a 20-word update on LinkedIn, if that's the appropriate thing to do. If it's timely news and you've got something to say and you want to add something by saying, come along to this webinar and find out more about what this means for your business. Right, I'm not saying you should do that every time, but if it's really instantaneous and newsworthy and something a bit like happened on March 23rd last year, where everything closed down and people immediately scrambled around thinking, what does this mean for me? Right. So that intent that needs serving then is in light of the uncertainty, what does it mean for my business? People are very quickly going to start telling you all the questions they've got in relation to that as well. Answer those questions. Don't be afraid to revisit your content and add kind of elements to it as well. The immediacy of that as well is probably lends itself slightly more towards, I think, video or those kind of live versions of your content as well. So if you've got something that's immediate, then go live, you know, do it on Facebook, do it on LinkedIn, do it on a video, and then send it quickly through LinkedIn. It's fine. Do any of those things. But for the written stuff, yeah, I think you, as David says, you need to plot out the questions and answers that real people are actually asking out there in the real world, and serve that intent. And as David and I covered in another mini webinar, I don't know if it's been released yet, David, or maybe it's something that we've done somewhere. We spent a bit of time with each other. Just think about this. Your intent that you start at the top of the page or you start at the top of the piece with changes as you go through. Because the first query you had is then satisfied. I understand that now. Right, I get that thing. Now, what's the next question? And what's the next question? And what's the next question? And that's how pieces should be structured nowadays. So David's right. You need to Google the thing that you're going to put as your headline, look at people also asked, include those questions, and then Google those questions and work out what the next phase of the intent is behind that. And if you've got a page, David, was it you that said to me the other day the reason that one of your, was it Neil Patel or one of the others that had done so incredibly well over the years was they've managed to, it stunned you when you went and looked into it, but they've actually only got 8 blog posts if you go and look at it properly, thoroughly. It's not
I think it could have been Neil Patel, who's done very well in the industry.
It's pretty lovely.
I mean, he's
ubiquitous, and the pages are 200 pages long of text.
Yeah, you're talking about tens of thousands of words, and you know, they spend so much time researching, getting it well written, getting the graphics in place and everything else. And there's another guy, Dean, I can't remember his last name, backlinko.com, who does another sort of every 3 to 6 months, a huge piece of content which covers pretty much everything on a single topic, it's a huge amount of work, but it's interesting.
think those things can evolve naturally over time as well. What I like about that is it's not a flash in the pan, share it once kind of piece of content. There's so much richness to it. There'll be a lot of deep linking into different parts of that page, and people are going to go and read certain answers as well. But once they're on there, they're going to scout around for other things as well.
And that's the other side of this. So along with, as Charlotte was saying, the words on the page, it's taking a step back then and looking how various pages interact together. So I think, Simon, your example of divorce law, there's so many areas to that. You start to develop this topical cluster of information, which should then lead back to a sales point. So that super call to action. You can have the calls to action on the page, but that here's the actual product or service that we have, and it really does help driving the ranking across the rest of the website as well. Works very well.
One of the adding to with Simon's the working it through the piece of content, flowing into the next. It's also marrying up your FAQs on the same page with those types of questions. And I've known some law firms who put FAQs, they've researched what typical questions people are asking on their Google My Business page, and then they're mirroring a lot of the FAQs on their service pages as well. The other final thing with content on your site is, especially with blogs, is using snippets from that on your social media. So it kind of has a double effect. You don't have to think, what content am I going to write on social media? What have I got to write on my website? Write it once and then pull the snippets out and use it over the next 2-3 weeks. So you can drip feed your content across your social media channels. So you're saving time across those as well.
And I think it can be taken even a stage further. If you're doing a webinar like this, this is hopefully fabulous content. It's useful content to people. Why is Simon laughing? Well, what you do then is you make sure you get it transcribed. It can become written content on a page. It can be split up into various topics. It can be then taken down a step further and become those social media snippets. It's, don't be afraid to reuse content. I think, that's one of the failings of people saying, the time it takes to get good content and going. Well, be smart about the content that you're creating and how you use that.
Such a good tip. When I came from being a journalist and moved into kind of PR and marketing, I had to really let go of that you've done it once, you don't do it again thing as well. And I think that that basic assumption that people will have read your article is proven to be wrong, or even worse actually, that they'll act on it the first time they see it. I mean, if you speak to sales guys, Alex Lowe and others as well, they'll tell you might see something 5 or 6 times before you're willing to act on it, as it were, as well. So don't be afraid to reuse and recycle, as David says. I think it's a very good tip. And as Rich has pointed out, various different elements on the page will be of interest to different people in different points of the buying process. So if you've got one question covered or another point covered further down the page, share the same article, but do it from the point of view of sharing that various different kind of elements or that question that's being answered. Now, Rich, on my wish list, I'd be interested in what you've got to say. My wish list is this is social proof for law firms. I just don't think, even in the days of brilliant review solicitors websites and Trustpilot and others as well, there is not enough social proof on the commercial sites as well. I know on the B2C law side of things is quite a bit better, but we need to see more testimonials in there as well, and people doing the hard work for us. And if that's not part of your current content marketing strategy, then it's Simon Digital Manager Marshall. You know where to find me, right? And I can help you with that. So can Rich, so can Charlotte, so can David, frankly, right? It's not even that hard to do it, and clients love to help you with it, but nothing sells like other people saying nice things about you. I don't think. I mean, that is a really useful topic, because it's really weird when you speak to a B2C client, law firm, they are all about social media, all about content driven, no problem at all. When you speak to a commercial client, B2B, the first thing most commercial clients will say to me is, I don't get my clients from the internet. I don't get them from the website. All of mine is referral based.
to which I call absolute BS on. I've dealt with so many commercial law firms and proved that wrong and go, your clients do come from the web. They will come from social media because they will check you out. Everybody now is online checking each other out. Are they valid? Who they are? And who do they say they actually are and who they represent? So yeah, commercial law firms out there, if you say you only get your clients from referrals, I'm sorry, but it's not true. People are looking in other avenues to work with you, but they are also looking for validation from your online presence as well. So yeah, Simon, nail on the head on that one.
I think that's also turning that problem around on its head as well. Is that just because you're only getting your work from one source doesn't mean that's the only source from which to get your work, right? And it's a false. I don't know, Charlotte, you'll know better than me as well, but it's a false conclusion based on the evidence that's in front of you, right? I called it out recently, as you know, in my LinkedIn post. I said, just because you've never got any work from your website doesn't mean you can't get work from your website. I mean, you know, we wouldn't say that otherwise. And I think that the big problem there, and we're going off on course a bit, but it's really interesting. There's one of the insolvency guys I used to work with came to me, and he'd written a very specific piece, really specific piece on insolvency in relation to one thing. I can't tell you because it'd be too obvious otherwise. And he was kind enough, because he was a gentleman and a gentleman as well, and he came up and said, we want a £45,000 deal on the back of that piece and what you did to help us optimize it and get it on the website as well. It was his idea. We hadn't done a great deal necessarily in the digital team, but we've always used it as proof of, look, you write great content, you'll get instructed on great things as well. It's not rocket science really, and we need to see more of that. And there was no social proof on the page. There should have been.
I think some law firms as well are afraid to write certain aspects of content because they're worried about what other law firms will think. And I say to them, stop worrying. Unless other law firms are your clients, professional negligence maybe, but unless other law firms are your clients, stop worrying about what the competition will think of your content, because it's not aimed at them. But there's this stigma around law firms where, I am a lawyer, I can't possibly write something like that, or I can't possibly, create content in that manner. They need to start. And we're seeing lots of them, as Simon, you've rightly pointed out on a few webinars previous, these future founding law firms that are coming out that are discussing more and more diverse topics. And they don't care what the institutions think. They don't care about what the law firms that have been established for 50 years. They are breaking the mold with that content. And that will have such huge longevity down the line as well.
But also what I was going to say about social proof, or making or relying on referrals, if you like, is how easy do firms make it to refer them? How much support do you give to your existing clients to then refer you further? Do you proactively go out there and ask for referrals? And one of the types of content, if you like, that I'm a massive fan of, especially recently, is something that I think tech companies do a lot more, and some of them do extremely well, is the buyer enabler content, which is basically very often just a list of questions that people would ask, or and I think especially for commercial clients, if you gave them a list of criteria, or almost like an evaluation sheet, okay, based on these are the things that you want to look at when you're deciding who to work with. This is the type of risk that you should be considering. This is the internal way of working that you should be looking at, and how that fits with an external partner. So I think. And again, it goes back to something that I like to emphasize very often, is that people don't necessarily know, even when they are educated buyers, even when they have done it before. That doesn't mean that you can't say something new to them when it comes to evaluating options. And the simpler you make it, the more likely they are that, to actually go through that process or to consider you. And because you've given them essentially all the negatives and all the things that can possibly go wrong. Okay, so what is the risk? What are the critical questions that you should be asking in terms of communication? We are talking about very important documents going back and forth. Should you be looking at how that's going to be done? Or, what's their guarantee for security, for example? But again, I'm interested in what you guys think or have seen around that potentially.
I think the job of lawyers and their marketeers is to make it safe. So whatever, just whatever that content might be, if you've got something on the page that they've got a series of questions about a challenging topic, what we've got to do is fill that void and that gap with, improved certainty, good answers to questions, social proof from clients saying how they've done it or how they've benefited or what it was like when they got through to the other side of it. And I think that's our job, like I say, as lawyers and marketeers, to kind of make that a bit safer for people as well in that content. So, in Charlotte's example, is it safe for me to upload my, divorce papers with you? Well, yeah, here's the systems that we use and this is how we do it. And here's what a client says about it, and I think that's our job in the content there, is to improve that rather than just saying, here's a sparkling system, just upload your documents. People won't use it and you won't know why. And it's because they haven't got over the emotional kind of grief of doing that. But with a small amount of content and the right color buttons and the right kind of calls to action, I think and it is color and it is that's content as well, and it is the right wording. You've got to use the first person, not the third person. They're not you, they're I or me. Let me do this. I'll upload my documents. Okay, I'm ready to do this, as it were. I don't know. I just think there's a lot that needs to be done, and I don't think there's any. Rich, I don't know about you, but I'm really coming at this idea of B2B just not really existing, like exists at all. And I think it's Charlotte that gave me, the real insight to it a while ago, calling it P2P instead. And I think if we just think of people as people and write as if they're people, and just remember, yeah, they're in a professional environment, we need to conduct ourselves that way. But I'm still writing for an individual that's going to make a decision, fundamentally. Then I think we'll approach some of that content not quite the same as B2C, but different.
Yeah, I don't think it will ever be as joined up or as, shall we say, as engaging as B2C content is, because B2C content covers so many avenues, but also it's more personal B2C content, whereas the B2B, it is this kind of, it's business. We need to be seen as being credible, and we can't be fluffy with it. That's one of the things I always got told. Going back onto the B2C content now, in terms of one of the best pieces of content that I've ever seen on a law firm, and it was years ago. It was actually a small law firm called Clutton Cox. There was a guy called Paul Hatchek. Hi, Paul, if you're watching. And he created a how-to around conveyancing. Now, this has got to be 8 years old, and it's a slide deck on his website. And it just showed the how-to around conveyancing. And when I first joined the legal industry, I didn't know what conveyancing was. And in one page, I was able to know what it is, how it works, and more importantly, what it means to me. And it was great because when I went to buy my first house, I now knew what was involved in it. So not only did it tell the story, but it was non-legal and it was just simple. And as you put there, Simon, it was telling me, it wasn't saying it in a third party, third person aspect.
So sorry,
No, you go on, Charlotte.
Well, I was going to pose a question to Simon, especially that let's make it numbers. What type of content? Because we said, okay, there is written content, there is video, there are podcasts, there's so much we can do. Yeah. We've also said that not necessarily the same things will work for every law firm, depending on what their practice areas are, depending on their size, depending on their ideal clients. But that's your expertise. What do the numbers say? Because that's something we said, but do the numbers actually underpin that?
Well, it's a really good question. So in terms of length of articles, I've got some answers there. I do see a huge leaning towards longer form rather than shorter form. I think that the short form game is not a good one on average for longer term kind of evergreen stuff. So I think that matters. That said, I think that shorter video works better than longer video. So that they're consumed differently. And I think if you've got something quick to say it in the video and try and do it in under a minute, or certainly in under 10 minutes, because that's LinkedIn's limit and that's no by accident. It's just because they think it's worth doing. But if you've got a webinar version like this that's an hour long, there's no reason why you don't have a long form version and then share snippets of it. So that works much better when you give people digestible points and do stuff like that. So there's that. what I did do before today, I won't show you the tables, but I went through all of your LinkedIn content for the last 250 posts each, and I want to do it for a really specific reason. I won't share all the stats today because I haven't shared them with you. It's not fair, but I thought it was interesting. Bring it, says David. But the point is,
go for it.
All of us have got different target audiences, right? And what works for Charlotte and what works for David might be two very different things. And so I want you to have the idea as to what the industry's doing or what some averages are and how they're helpful. But equally, you know, if Charlotte did video terribly, she doesn't. But if Charlotte did video terribly and David did it really well, he doesn't, right? Then maybe those would distort the statistics. I'm joking, right? I'm joking, but that wouldn't be helpful then, because you'd be judging it based on if Charlotte and David were as good as each other on video. Do you see what I mean? So part of the answer has to be, right, what's good in general, and that's good to know. Then where do I beat the market on those things? And the tables will show you some of those details, as it were, as well. And that's quite fun knowing. What's good look like for a law firm set of impressions on a post? I've had some terrible posts recently, Rich. I don't know about you. Sometimes I release them the wrong time of day on LinkedIn. Sometimes it's just boring. Sometimes I use the wrong I tag too many people and they don't like it, and that means it's all switched off, and you know, things go wrong. You know, I don't get it right all the time, but you know, at least I look at the data and try and learn from it and move on with it. And I think we could, given the amount of money and time invested by law firms in their content, I'd love to see a bit more analysis of the data and then try and do some of that stuff a bit better at times as well. So yeah, Charlotte, I feel like I've danced around the answer without telling you what your stats are. Charlotte knows full well that her videos have done really well. So, and David actually tops the tree on video there. He and one of the reasons is because I think David's got live on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn loves nothing more than itself, right? And
That's
Charlotte,
true.
I don't think you've got live on LinkedIn, have you? And I haven't.
I do have live, but I've never actually gone live. So next time, David, we are changing this, and we are running this from my account.
This alone has got a lot of impressions of David in the past as well, and it's a double hit with video on LinkedIn if you think about it, because it's the post and then it's the actual video within the post as well, and both of those count as impressions, as it were. So some of David's stuff, I'm going to look at the table quickly. At the upper echelons is. Oh, actually, Rich is even higher. Some of David's video is 5,000 impressions. Some of Rich's image stuff, and there's a video by Rich as well, 6,000 odd impressions, and he's shared those as well. So yeah, I mean, look, there's some really good stuff on there. I'll note that none of it, however, will take on Charlotte's TikToks, obviously, which obviously trounced the rest of us hands down. So that's what I mean, though. You've got to think about, you know, where's Charlotte's buyers hanging around? Where are my buyers hanging around? They might not be hanging in the same place, and we could be. It's not an age or a gender thing either. It could just be an appropriate audience for what they're buying, you know, given the nature of what they're buying. If you're a family lawyer and your audience hang around on LinkedIn, on Facebook, then don't spend your whole day on LinkedIn. You know, there's no point hanging in the wrong area, doing the wrong content. You know, I think we need a bit more of that. Just people thinking about where's the buyer, what are they doing, what do they care about, what do they like, what do they read, on what averages. Can we do more of that?
There is one thing that I have changed on my content around LinkedIn, and that's the frequency of posts now. I've actually reduced it.
Yeah,
I think I'm posting once or twice in a week, and I've got more views, more likes and engagement than me doing. I mean, I'm going to put my hands up. I did have an RSS feed linked to my LinkedIn page where I was pulling in content from the Law Gazette or, Inside Legal Futures. But I turned all that off and just started, I'm going to try something for a couple of months. And it's hugely worked out better for me. So I get these legal RSS feeds are great there for publishing content. But I realized it was actually working against me because I don't think LinkedIn likes these feeds anymore. They used to a long time ago, but now, my frequency of posts are less, but there's much more quality behind the actual content for them.
I think I've seen the same as well. I mean, I had the RSS feed, excuse me, up until a few years ago and running for some time, and I remember looking into some of the figures LinkedIn one day and seeing, it was impressions that were about 20 or 30, something like that. And it was multiple posts several times a day. And just like yourself, Rich, I scaled it right back, started putting something a little bit more meaningful on there, a little less often, and it all changed very quickly. There's definitely things that LinkedIn likes and doesn't like.
Do you want me to show you these tables then, so we can have a laugh at it? Is everybody up for it? Okay.
Go on then.
Yeah.
Do I share doing that? Is how I do that? Do a bit of that? I don't know.
Is this where we find Simon has got like 9 digits next to one of his posts or something?
No, you wish. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So David's got the most likes.
Oh, that's
Well done,
that's a
Over
big
the last
surprise.
250 posts.
I know why that is.
Well, because you're more likable, that's why.
No, because I put a picture of my daughter on her first day to school.
How many did that get? 72,000 likes or something?
It had, I can't remember, but it was back in September, of course. Her first day at school. It was your traditional front door, and I wrote a little post about learning and things of discovery at that early age and how we lose a bit over time. But I remember, I mean, the impressions were through the roof, and comments and likes. Yeah, if in doubt, get yourself a cute child.
Yeah.
And just use them for social media purposes. It's fabulous.
And then comments is heading in the right direction, and we do a lot better than the lawyers that I see on average. These are the averages per post. They're quite useful because, for those level of comments, law firms tend to be way below 1 comment per post, and comments are what drives impressions on the post as well. So yeah, there's more work for all of us to do, but David absolutely trounces us on the like count. I would have thought Charlotte would have beaten all of us on that, frankly. So yeah, there we go.
I wish.
I don't think it's that. It's just that you've got a split game with your excellent TikToking stuff as well. And then I did. I've done a report for each of you, so I'll send it on afterwards as well. But this is mainly this type of content, to answer Charlotte's earlier point. This live video. You see, look at that, because there's a double count effectively, and native videos score very well as well. But polls have just gone through the roof recently.
Yeah.
So everyone's assumption is that image-based work comes out top and comes out bottom.
I wonder if that's because I know sometimes I see these posts and it is just an image. Does that include image and text?
I just think that people don't engage with those posts as much as they do. They might stop and dwell time on it, but I don't think that they comment and like it as much as they will do with a think about what the eye does in that situation. It goes, you've scrolled beyond it and you look at the image, and then you go scroll back and go to the headline and get into the post. So it's almost the wrong way around. I wonder if LinkedIn flipped the image so it was above the text, then I think you'd get higher engagement levels with image-based stuff. And people should think about this, by the way, for their video work. They should think about this for their Zoom calls when there's an opportunity to have a questionnaire before you get going. There's perfectly good content there. See what I mean? There's loads of stuff that people can do on the content front that is just appears to be small and just off to the side slightly, but will make a huge difference to the levels of engagement that you get as a result of it as well. By the way, none of those performances is poor at all. Between us, we've got at least 750,000 impressions this year on LinkedIn. That's not a small feat, given that the algorithm has gone down and down and down over the last few months as well. I know that however, Alice Stevenson managed that in a single post recently, so just to point that out.
Let's get to 1 million. Let's get to 1 million.
I think we should push on. I would love to see us play a game for trying to each of us, look at what the challenge is and then try and play the game of, okay, Charlotte might look at it and go, I'm doing well for likes. What am I doing on the comments front? How do I encourage one of those comments? David can say, whatever he's got to do to convert his likes as well and things like that. And I just think there's some stuff that we can do in there to play with it as well. But have you noticed how the 4 of us are immediately open to the idea of treating it as if it's a bit of a game and just doing that? And I think that's part of the success with content. It's not some, they're not written in stone. It's not a tablet coming down from the mountain, right? It's just a flipping legal update, right? A&O's written one and it's as good as yours.
Have a think about the sort of content when you're doing the scroll through through LinkedIn, what stops you and makes you engage with things? And I know, I mean, from my side, it can be somebody I know or know of, or if it's the marketoonist, a damn good image and a funny cartoon. It really is vital to grab people at that level. And there are certain people where, regardless of that headline word section or the image, I see their name and I'll stop and I'll have a look, and probably would put a like or a comment in there, because I know that the stuff is always very interesting.
I'm seeing more and more caption competition posts. Well, not even competition, just caption posts. There's one called, I think it's Cyber World or something, and they'll post something like, what's the password that you wouldn't choose for your servers, and they get hundreds of comments and likes and so on. And then they've got a spin-off cyber group where they do this similar as well. And I put one small post in there. I said I would use the game Boggle to create my password because nobody can guess it, because it's always different. And a guy said, where do I sign up? Where do I buy this kind of thing? It was obviously all a joke, but it was these caption ones. That's the ones that get my attention most of the time.
And this, because I was going to half a question, half a statement, but I think it's also interesting to see how we are all performing well in different types of posts. And I was wondering, well, A, wondering what your views are, but B, just going to say that it's recognizing that something might just work for you. And I really enjoy reading posts which are just purely text-based, but they don't work well for me. And you know what? I have probably not tried hard enough to crack that nut. I'm not giving up just yet. But I'm very conscious that, my videos, my images will outperform every single purely text-based post that I do. And I think it's also the case of, sometimes just having to take a step back maybe and realize that actually that's what my audience likes. And just that I have this idea in my head that, maybe the people who follow me are, like this. No. And then also the other side of this is Simon was saying that, we all work with different people and we are after different target markets. Yes, that's true, but also people don't have a single interest. So we might be after the same people in a certain case, but they go for one of us for educational updates, whereas they go to get inspired to the other person. That's not to say that the inspiration and the education are about two completely different areas of marketing or about the legal industry, but it's different emotions and different mental states that the same person might be in. And I think that's really interesting. And also just to conclude, just going into your personal brand, it's just who are you and what kind of personality do you have? And you know what, I will admit this hands on heart. When I first went into the legal industry, I thought that I have to be this really serious person.
Yeah.
And I have to I don't know, act very serious and use big words, and that's how I'm going to make it, and people will take me very seriously. And you know what? It doesn't bloody work. It's not me. I can't pull it off. I don't think it suits me. And I've got to the point where I said, hang on, if I have to be like that, it's probably not the right place for me, because I will hate it. I will probably burn out, if anything. And I think people see through it.
You wouldn't be able to keep it up either. That's the other thing, is trying to be that, what other people perceive you to be, trying to keep that up. You won't. Eventually, the real you does shine through. Simon, you used it in a couple episodes back. It was the Glastonbury theory. You don't go to Glastonbury for one thing. You go to Glastonbury for lots of different things. And ever since I heard that, I have stolen it, unfortunately, but I've used the Glastonbury analogy. You go to the poetry tent, you might go to the rock and roll tent, you might go to the blues tent. You see different content at Glastonbury. And that is how you should treat your content. Different content, different mediums, different styles, because everybody, as Charlotte put it, you got different moods, you got different aspects, you got different people. So putting anything out there, I think people are afraid to put it out there in case other people wonder what they think. You put it out there, it either works, great, carry on. If it doesn't work, at least you've tried and tested it. But if you don't do it at all, you'll always fail. Simple.
I think that's always been one of the biggest fears. What if people don't like me? But
I've got that covered on your behalf. Anyone who's watching this, I've already got that covered. Don't worry about that. It's fine. I've got that cornered.
I honestly, and this is probably especially true when it comes to professional services, lawyers. You'll see those rather dry legalese posts coming through, and then you'll see something which just shows their personality. And straight away, there's so much more of an engagement there. There's a much better understanding of who that person is. You get a sense of who the company is through that as well. It gets quite interesting.
I've just taken on a new client, and the first thing he said to me, and I was really worried about this, he said to me, I want you to do one thing for me, though. And I was like, okay, I hope this isn't a lawyer telling me what to do via social media. He said, I want to get the ethos of our firm out to everybody and what it stands for. And we spent more time on what he wanted the firm to stand for than the actual social media element, what we're going to deliver. And probably 80% of it was great. Some of it I said, look, that is what every other law firm says in the land. That is crap. That's just absolute rubbish. And everybody says it. But this bit, this is gold. This is brilliant. So let's work on that. But he wanted to get his team across on social media. So that's going to be my big thing with this new client, is getting who the team is, what they are, and getting their personalities, not to sound too cheesy, out their content out onto social media as well as their website.
I actually wrote an article. Oh, sorry.
Always try. You go first.
I'll be brief. Is that I just wrote an article not long ago about how law firms are potentially, I think, restricting themselves when they restrict their lawyers from letting their personality shine through. Because as we know, every firm and every brand has its own brand personality, but that's not to say that the lawyers necessarily have to have that same personality. So really, if you let your lawyers stand for and communicate their own personality and who they are, without damaging the brand, you are actually able to branch out and potentially speak to and resonate with a larger client base.
Show me someone at the top of their game in any area of law, and I will argue with you that not one of those people is grey and boring. Not one, right? No, grey and boring never wins the game, right? Tax, some of the most exciting, intellectually brilliant individuals doing that work as well. If you think about it, it doesn't matter which area of law you pick out, right? The very best people in any area will be talented, interesting, interested. That's got to be worth thinking about as well in terms of how you go about sharing your stuff. Now, Rich, I want to talk about something about you and I for a minute as well, because when I first started coming across Rich, and of course he's hard to avoid on the internet, I've really feared like Rich and I hang around in the same place as each other. What would it mean? And we're in competition and we kind of do similar kind of things, this and that as well. And I really got over that a while ago. It's like, actually, it's just we're not too far apart from each other. He's up the road in Gloucester, aren't you? But you mainly work down this way as well. And then I think, but it's a massive market. And actually, Rich is always generous, always lifts me up. Whenever we're doing stuff on social, he always dips in, says something nice and lifts you up. And I do the same, hopefully, the way around. I'm a bit cheeky to him, I know. But I actually think that playing those games and joining each other commentary-wise, sharing opinions and doing that kind of stuff as well. I know he's nicked my Glastonbury idea, but that idea of doing that is symbiotic. It's good for everyone to do a bit of that. And I think there's a really fearful element of legal marketing still that relates to that content is proprietary and need to be this way. Well, I'm not being funny, but I'm actually only 27 years old and I only look this old because I've had to read so much law firm marketing over the last year. It's very, very similar, a lot of it. And frankly, not as good as you'd expect it to be, considering the brain power at the disposal of the individuals behind it. And I'd love to see more firms stepping out and not taking a risk, but actually just making stuff that's interesting and delivering it in a human way as well. And celebrating each other's work. You know, there's no harm in being a lawyer at A&O and saying, that's a bloody great piece you've written there. Well done. What I mean, not being funny, but when I comment on Rich's post, he's not going to like me saying this, but you know, his followers are my target clients. My followers are his target clients. If he's going to speak to them, guess what? Rich Dibins is a name that anyone who's on my LinkedIn following would know, and I'm, you know, that's good for him. You know, if he's going to say something better than I've said it to all those followers on LinkedIn, good, all power to him, right? I think we can lift each other up, and I want to see a bit more of that from the people that we work alongside, the lawyers as well as the marketing guys.
I think you're more. Sorry, David. I think you're more respected as well if you do that. By the way, so yeah, it definitely works. Sorry, David.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting. I think in the area of digital marketing, SEO particularly probably earlier on, that was an industry where there were no real concerns about sharing information, sharing contacts. It was everyone was there to lift each other up and help each other through. It's changed a bit in the last 5-6 years or so, but I think it's something that, I mean, one thing that I always think of when it comes to the law firms is the fear of putting something out there. Often the first question asked is, who else has done this? Or the other way around, somebody else has done this, so we must do it.
I joked with some firms a while ago, especially around budget day, right? There's only so much energy you can expend on budget day. If you're not an accountant, you're not working at PwC or Deloitte, right? And I said to someone a while ago, the best thing you could do is just wait until A&O has published their stuff and then send it to your client and say, right, we can advise you on this, right? Someone else has done all the hard flipping work and spent all that time. You can spend the day billing and doing whatever you're going to do. Pick up their report, send it to your clients. I mean, I know I'm being a bit facetious, but there is an element of truth of perfectly good content being out there. And I do know that some other firms actually use the Big Four stuff and send it to their clients and went, you don't need to go to a Big Four client, you can do this with us, right? And
it's funny, I do that with all your stuff. It's great.
I wondered why your business is struggling so much at the moment as well. Imagine if you had to rely on my content, Rich Dibins.
Well, I've heard lots of law firms that already do that, but some of them go, I want to say this, what the Big Four are saying, but I want to put it in my words. And I go, well, go on then. They went, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. I said, well, first and foremost, please don't copy and paste. And I'm teaching anybody to suck eggs here. Do not copy and paste from other people.
Yeah, from the person who works at the Bristol law firm that wasn't Osborne Clark and Burgess Salmon, they used to nickel our content all the time. I know exactly who you are, and I'll never forget the fact you used to nickel our work. And I remember calling you on a Friday morning and giving you 2 hours to take it down.
And I would always find it funny when I saw another law firm, their website would have the content, and they'll go, we want to be like them, but you know, we don't want to be them. And I go, but you copied their content word for word. Why have you done that? And they go, oh, because they target the same clients as us. And I'm like, but content like that is not going to win it because it only originates in one place. But yeah, I've known law firms to go, yeah, we've got this thing from Irwin Mitchell. We can do exactly the same for you, except you're not going to get city fees. You're going to get outside of city fees for the same type of work. But yeah, no, it's a great point that actually, Simon.
I think there's one other side to all of this, and that's on the internal side. And that's, I mean, you mentioned sort of budget day. And I remember working with one law firm, and I can't remember if there was a budget or an act changing in Parliament, but there was something quite important happening, and they were keen to get some information out. And they mentioned this on the morning of it happening, which was, of course, really good timing in itself. And then they quickly proceeded to send the copy back for various amends, changes, agreements, approvals. And for something that we had actually seriously hoped to get out with it within 24, 48 hours, it turned out that took something like 2 weeks. And by that time, everyone else had written everything there was to do with this. Well, and I think there's something to be said for having some process approvals to be able to get stuff out quickly.
Let me tell you a story that's the other way around, because we need some good news, right, as well. And the Denton's homegrown campaign this week has been just a tremendous success. And what they've done really cleverly, Rich, you're going to like this, is they took a single piece of content, a video about what it was like to work in the Scottish office and be part of the evolution of the office for the last 17 years. But they said to everyone internally, please can you share this video, but do it natively on LinkedIn. And everyone went away and wrote their own post about it. And I have to say, all power to the Dentons.com team. They've done such a good job with it as well. 91 people, 89 people shared that post in 2 corporate accounts as well. And I think I had 142,000 impressions the last time I looked in total across the board as well. Just a phenomenal result. But what was really clever about it, it'd be good if I can see everyone else on screen for a minute, David, but is the other speakers, is that everyone had added their piece to it. So one person who's in the Middle East who was Scottish said, oh, this is making me homesick. You know, but you wouldn't have necessarily known she was Scottish just from her name necessarily. And someone else wrote, oh, I remember when I was in the office and I did it. And it's such a clever idea to give people one piece of content and recycle the living hell out of it to the tune of 90 odd posts that had this, you know, breakout. They were even better than Charlotte's TikToks. That's the numbers we're talking about here, right? I mean, massive numbers, right? So, yeah. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more of that really interesting central content disseminated properly so that people can then share it. Sorry, Charlotte.
I was just insulted in public, live.
We're all to see it on the web.
I can't get over this. But yeah, no, in terms of, and I'm being conscious of time, but, you know, what I like about that is, you know, like tapping into culture again, you know, like everyone has, and you know what, even if you're not Scottish, everyone has, you know, like some sort of feelings about culture. It's just like, oh, I remember when I felt like that. Maybe feeling like that was linked to a different country or a different office or a different job for me, but it taps into how I felt. And you know, like you can't walk past something like that without saying something.
You can't fake the think global, act local element of what they've achieved, right? They've basically said, here's a piece of content about this office, and then people all around the world sharing that content and talk about what it means. Now try doing that if you're a regional law firm with one office. So you just, to Rich's point a minute ago, you can't do it. I want to do what Dentons are doing. Okay, you can't. But if you're Lanyon Bowdler, what you do is you say, let's walk the coast and do something really clever and give people a sense of who we are instead. I think there are things that can be done. Anyway, look, eye on time, David.
We're coming up on time, so let's just have a quick round here of final thoughts, any tips. So for anyone out there, what would be your number one tip for content production, creation? What would you recommend people try, look out for?
Don't be afraid. Just write it and put it out there. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least you know you've done it and you've put it out there. You know you can tick in a box. People don't like or engage with that content. Try something else. But put the content out there, provided it's not, you know, insulting or anything. And they're the stupid things that some people put. But yeah, try it. Just put it out there. See what your audience think, because you'll be surprised.
That sounds good. How about you, Charlotte? Any tips?
Make sure that it feels right. It feels right for you. It fits, and if someone comes back to you with a piece of feedback, or saying, "Oh, I've seen this thing about you," you can actually be proud and happy about what you just did, whatever it is.
I like it. And Simon,
2 things. One, do more of what works. To Rich's point, do more of what works. So look at the stats and then do more of that. And then the other one is, and I can't emphasize this enough, it doesn't matter if it's on video or in a post or in a blog, just write a great headline. The rest of it is secondary behind that. Write a great headline, pull in a huge audience, and the rest will work itself out after that.
I think that's great. That's great advice. I mean, I think all of that is great. I'd say, yeah, give it a go. I think consistency plays a part as well. You know, don't just do 1 or 2, especially when it comes to the likes of LinkedIn. Spend some time, whether it's working on content or, as you say, the headlines as well, because it all pays dividends in the end. So that's great. Right, conscious of time, we've just come up on the hour, and I know Rich has more interesting things to do than hang around with us. So let's all wave goodbye to Rich's fan club. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we will be back at the usual time, probably next week. and we shall post some information on what our topics might be then. So thank you for everyone who's watching. If you are watching the recording, I have also been reminded not just to introduce myself at the end, but at the end to say, or probably close to the beginning to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button, or you can just press it, whichever you feel like doing. That's absolutely fine. But until next week, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.